guess let's rock and roll. Hello, everyone. Welcome and thanks for attending this presentation, which is a sneak peek on an upcoming, or I should say, work in progress tool. It's currently under development, so I'll be showing you a bit of that later on in the presentation. So if you don't want to wait for that, just like come back towards the end. But I am going to cover like a few other things, like why the tool came to be, and some other updates in TopoBuild. So with that, let's get started. So I don't know if any of you guys are doing like modeling in Houdini, but if you look at the current modeling tool set, these are more or less the tools that are available. So there's like basic stuff like poly splits, edge loops, poly bevel, extrude, fill, poly bridge, etc. Personally, I don't use like probably half of these. I just use like 4 or 5 for my modeling needs. So what would be really nice is to have like just one tool that does a lot of things, because you don't want to have to like go and access all these other tools in between, and then meanwhile have your network editor just like accumulate, like hundreds of nodes in your history where if you're doing like direct modeling, which I should specify, like those nodes previously, they are like procedural nodes. So if you're doing like an HDA, where you're doing an asset that's like making windows or something, then these are like valid tools, or like tools that are for you, because you will need them. But if you're doing something like direct modeling, then you don't care about like having the history that you need to go back to access. And so really, you just need more or less one or a few tools that has like a bunch of different modes inside. And currently in 16.5, this tool kind of exists in TopoBuild, where you have stuff like build, edge slide, split, which you can use for poly split. I'm going to show these examples later, but like I just want to give you guys some context if you guys are not familiar with Houdini for modeling, which like it's kind of like rare, I guess. Like not many people are using Houdini for modeling in the traditional sense compared to like other DCC apps. But I had a previous presentation where I did like an experiment in Houdini to try to model as I would in a normal DCC app, and I hope that doesn't sound like bad or something, but just if you're coming from a different 3D background, then you're used to like doing things a certain way. Like for example, in Maya, you're like compulsively deleting history, but in Houdini, you get all your history recorded, which is helpful. But like if you know you don't need that, then like it probably doesn't need to be there. So within the TopoBuild, if you guys aren't familiar, it's a node that's used for retopologizing high like 3D scans or high poly meshes that you bring in from like 3D Coat or ZBrush, and you project onto a templated geometry that's the high res, and then you just remesh on top of that. But it's a manual tool, and you like in an earlier presentation, I used that as a way to be my like general modeling tool, because it has a lot of these modes inside that allows me to do a lot of things, but just have one node in my network editor, like in my history. And that was super cool, and I showed it to the developer who was working on this tool, and he was like, no, you shouldn't use that, it's not kosher. Because you're basically like templating into your existing geo, and it does like, it might like eat up your resources, but it didn't in my example. But there was like a push to have like more artist-friendly tools that you could just use directly in the viewport. And so PolyDraw is kind of like one of these steps. So let me just show you guys if you're not familiar with TopoBuild. Also, if I'm not like making sense or like skipping things, just like interrupt me. So this is the build mode in TopoBuild currently, and you can either put down points that you can use as guides for placing down geometry, but again, this requires like a templated mesh. And so if you don't need to have something to project onto and you just want to like straight model, there really isn't anything currently available in Houdini 16.5. So you can do all sorts of like great, fast, easy things like pull out faces from edges, adjust points. There's also different modes within build mode, which is like straighten edges. If you just double click and select an edge, you can straighten. You can also like evenly divide, evenly space your edges, and basically have like a range of tools. If you right mouse button click, there's a new mode, Phil, which I'll show later. But there's like a whole bunch of options within one mode within a tool, and you can just easily access these with hotkeys and not ever have to like leave to go click on a toolbar or somewhere else. So it's a way for people to do like direct modeling in Houdini. Another mode is edge slide. So if you want to just adjust your edges, your geometry, then this is a mode. It's a Shift #2 hotkey. And all the hotkeys are like mapped Shift 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for TopoBuild. Another mode is is a split mode. And this one you can freely drop down edges, and you can have like even divisions if you just like middle mouse scroll to get the number of divisions that you need, and then you just like click. So that's if you were to have this without using TopoBuild, let's say, then you would have like, how many nodes would you have already? Just from each poly split, you'd have like a node per click, basically. You can also do like full edge loop splits if you hold down the Shift key, and also that works with like divisions as well, so you can place them down. So that's like combining two more nodes, like the edge loop and poly split. There's another mode within TopoBuild, and that's brush. So this one you can just like paint, move your geometry, and just position things as you need. There's also like the control for intensity, like the strength of your brush. So if you don't need it to be that strong, you can just adjust the levels. It's like 0 to 1. So this one you can move all like free floating geometry and just like push things around. And then there's another mode within TopoBuild, which is smooth. And this one allows you to relax the stuff, like the interior geometry, with keeping respect to the boundary, which admittedly, this is not like the best example to show you, but like if you see those like blue edges, they indicate like a boundary. So if you painted near them, they would maintain the shape, so you don't alter the positions. Yeah. And this is like me switching back to the build mode. So again, with the hotkey, I didn't need to like go anywhere. I'm just like swapping between smooth and build mode to just nudge things. And so this is a handy tool to have. This last mode is skin, which is only available in TopoBuild because you are projecting onto like a self-contained surface. And then you can quickly build your mesh by drawing out like a profile curve across, and then just like, I think it's like a control, and just click and drag, and then you get a full closed geometry that connects to something that's pre-existing. And this is just using the smooth node to just relax stuff. So again, like very handy tools to have, but it's only restricted to like remeshing, retopologizing, which is like, well, what if I want to do regular modeling? There isn't currently a way. So if we were to look at the same bunch of nodes that we looked at previously that are available for modeling, if you replace it with just like TopoBuild as a modeling tool, then you eliminate all these other like what, 2, 4, 6, 7 nodes in your network editor. And if you were to have like your network editor open, that's minus how many times you use those tools each time. And so that is like, I think, a lot less visual noise, and it probably helps you to stay more organized in your scene. Yeah, so basically, less nodes in the network editor, that's great, but if we look at it overall, it's still not possible to easily put down geometry in your scene because currently the only ways to do that is through putting down primitive geometry, or if you're like a masochist, then you can use like test geometry, which I don't know if you guys are familiar with Houdini test geometry. There's like a bunch of them that ship, and they're handy for like testing all sorts of like craziness. But yeah, so like these are the options, and then you can use a curve tool to draw out a curve and then convert it to like NURB surface, and then convert that to polygons, which is just like, it's a lot of like unnecessary steps, so why? But if we are looking at PolyDraw today, this work in progress tool, this is the new way to be able to put down geometry without any templated geometry that would be required in TopoBuild. And you can just like freeform draw polygons. So I'm repeating my slides. So you can just like draw stuff. For example, if you have like a character sketch and you have your reference images, then you can just load them in the ortho views and start drawing out your polygon shapes. And for example, I have this image I found. See, it's PolyDraw is so fresh, there's not even an icon. You can just put down a PolyDraw in your scene, load your templated geometry, and start drawing your shape out like so. And just like trace your image. And so this is the build mode. And then I'm switching to brush. So you can see that my mouse stayed in the same place. I'm just nudging the things into position, all the while just with one node in the scene. And yeah, I'm just like pushing polys, pushing points. So now I'm using the split tool to just divide, and again, nudging things. Are any of you guys doing modeling in Houdini here? No hands. Oh, hands. Lots of hands. Okay. What do you guys use it for? Like, what kind of modeling do you do? Do you guys do like HDAs or like direct modeling?
Pretty simple stuff.
Like a box?
Well, more complex, but like if it's too complex, I'm going to wire or something.
Yeah. So we like kind of understand the pain, and so we're trying to like make tools that are more like normal modeling tools. So like obviously, you know, we're historically known as an FX package, so that's why a lot of these modeling tools are kind of like not there, and not because like we didn't want to make them, but it's just like people didn't kind of ask for those things because everyone was just doing FX. But now that we have more of an interest to build stuff in Houdini like the classic way, we're trying to make the tools to be more artist-friendly for users. So here you can see like I'm literally in just one tool, and I'm doing all these operations through hotkeys, which everyone should use because hotkeys are the best. And I'm just building out polygons. So what else are you guys like modeling in Houdini? The people who put their hands up.
And the piece down in Eric Alley, the transformation maps we talked about it yesterday.
What?
And the piece down in Eric Alley, the transformation maps we talked about it yesterday.
Oh.
It's all the 3D printed piece. It's like a giant raven head.
Oh yeah, I have to see that. Yes, yes. Anybody else? No one. Okay. So anyway, so I laid down my initial geometry, and now I can just like go into my edit SOP. And edit SOP is kind of like another. I'm going to call these like black sheep nodes because they're not procedural in the way that most nodes are in Houdini. But that just means that you have the option to stay in the environment that's procedural, but still use these nodes that are like, I guess, locked, so to speak. So what that means is like if you change something upstream, like you change a point selection, and your point number changes, then the stuff will either break or change downstream. But if you're conscious of that decision when you're working, then you're not going to be surprised like down the road. So for example, here I know that in my initial PolyDraw, when I put down those points, I have an edit, and then I have a poly extrude. So if I change the places of those points, I'm not going to break the poly extrude because the poly extrude is not tied to the position of those points. So now I can just freely adjust the position of my initial geometry and still keep that extruded surface and just straighten things or evenly space. And the edit SOP, as I was saying, as a member of the black sheep nodes family, there's a whole bunch of nodes within that as well, which is similar to TopoBuild, where you can do straighten edges, evenly spaced. You can also like make a perfect circle, and there's a few other things in there, which if you right mouse button over it, then you'll see. And so here I'm just like continuing to build out the rest of the shoe, and just in a totally standard way of working, like you would do in other applications. Which I'm not sure actually if there is, if anybody can answer here, like, is there a 3D application that is allowing you to build like this?
Quadro is pretty close to my.
What?
Quadro in Maya is pretty close.
Okay.
You can use it freely as well, but not all of this.
Like which?
Quadro in Maya.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, so like here I have some soft radius fall off where I'm just like adjusting with the scroll wheel, rotating and positioning. And if I don't like any of those things, then I can just delete the edit node, which contains all this editing information. And I would still have the base shape of my initial second strip, and I can just reshape that. I'm just kind of like awkwardly adjusting because there was only one side image. There was like no top view or front view for me to adjust. But this way you can just like freeform work in your 3D viewport and not have to pay attention to what's going on in your network editor, even though I just went there now. But here, I'm just really like merging the two shapes. So if I ever wanted to adjust like the initial shape, then I can just delete one of them. And now I'm just like gonna bridge the two together to have like one cohesive surface right after I delete the faces there. But now I'm using one of the new modes in TopoBuild and PolyDraw, which is called fill. And that's just, if you have like two rows of faces, then you can just select an edge and hit F key continuously to fill it all the way. So thanks Dylan Shibana for your cool shoe sketches. So that's one way to use PolyDraw, like if you want to use it as your modeling tool in that sense. You can also use it in the case where you're doing Boolean geometry, because if you guys are doing any Booleaning work here, you'll know that you end up with like really messy geometry. And again, if you were to use conventional modeling tools, then you're like always having these nodes that don't need to be there. And so PolyDraw would be perfect for that, because you're just going to clean up like merge faces, delete floating points, delete bad geometry, rebuild those. And yeah, I'm really like nervous about this, so if this like explodes, just please forgive me. It's like a user error, it's not software, so. All right, so let's do this. Okay, so here I have some really basic geometry, and I'm just gonna pop this over, and I'm just gonna like do some like live modeling before I show how you should use PolyDraw for cleaning up your mesh. So I'm just making like an abstract shape. Actually, I'm just gonna do this and make a new null. And this just allows me to like point anything to that, because if I go here, I made a bunch of stuff before. That's gonna be something I can reference to later on. And so I don't even care about like naming stuff, because I know I'm not gonna need that. And so now I'm just, you know what, I don't even need to do that. I'm just gonna select these faces here and then just pull them down. And there's my initial edit. I don't really care to see anything else after that, so I'm just gonna hit Control B on the other window. And then I get my full 3D viewport. And now if I want to put down, actually I'll just do some initial beveling first, and just middle mouse scroll, adjust that, change this to round, and I probably want to crank that a lot because I want to be smooth, and I know that I'm going to Boolean that, so yeah, I just want the shape, clean shape, and now I want to get some cuts in my geometry here somewhere, and then probably something up at the top. So I am going to just pop back in quickly to my network editor, and I'm going to just move that stuff out of the way because I don't want to see that over here. And now I'm going to put down a box. Where did my box go? It's here, but it's like way over here. So let me just drag this guy over here, and I'm just gonna like shape it into the scale that I want. Maybe go into my side view and position that somewhere about here. And like I can always go back and adjust this, so I don't have to freak out too much. And for convenience purpose, I can adjust the position in the box node, but if I put a transform down and I need to adjust that later on, because I know I'll want to, then it's easier to adjust it here than if I go into my parameter pane, going to this and trying to find some number that makes sense, because it's not gonna. So it's better to have something clean here where you can just like transform it. And so now I'm just gonna select this edge, and I'm going to bevel that and just crank that up and change that to round. And then I'm gonna cut that, but I need it to be a little bit fat because it's gonna cause me discomfort to have it like just lying on top of each other. So here we are. Okay, so now it's ready to cut. So now I'm going to put down a Boolean, and just going to select these two, shift select these two, and then just plug them into the first, and they'll auto plug themselves. And there is not the shape that we want. We want the subtract. So now if we want to adjust the position, then we can just go, oh yeah, something like that. Maybe like a bit higher or a bit forward. And so that's the cool thing about Houdini. You can still have like the black sheep nodes, and then with the procedural workflow or nonlinear workflow, you can still like go back upstream and kind of like change stuff. So that's one shape. I'm gonna make another one and just copy those. So I'm just holding Alt and copy those stack. And I just want to keep this as a template so I can see it. And then I'm going to hit the display flag here. And I want actually the bottom part to bevel, so I don't really care about the bevel in the corner. So I'm just going to move that to the side. And I don't want to see the shoe guy anymore, so I'm just going to turn that off. And maybe like super high. And I will actually just reselect my edge and work smart and say, I want to bevel that instead. So it's the same amount of bevel applied, but on a different edge. So now I can cut that in the same way I did. And I'm going to duplicate my Boolean again, so I don't have to set my subtract mode. I'm just going to hold down Alt, click and drag, and hold the Y key to snip my wires, and then plug these guys in the same way. And now I have this. I just have to turn off the template, and then, oops. Hotkey. There we go. And now I have this cut. So now I have kind of like the basic shape that I want. And now what other shapes do I want? Some kind of cool detail on the side. So I'm just going to grab this box here and make a new shape, a new kind of cut, something thin. And I'll just make a new transform. And now I'm just going to move this guy over here and something like this. But I want to bevel these two. So I'm just going to select these guys and, oops, too much. If you hold down Shift and middle mouse scroll, then you get a smaller increment. And maybe like 3. I'm going to change that to round. A bit more. Yeah, okay. And then like a little bit more smooth. And we're ready to cut. So again, just hold down Alt, click and drag. Y to slash, and we just, oops, click and drag to connect. And that's just one cut. So what I want to do, oops, straighten this first and move that over here. What I want to do is duplicate a whole bunch of these. So I'm just going to do that with the copy and transform. And that's just going to instance my little skinny box thing. And I'm going to do it in the Y. And I can adjust that after. I just want to see what that looks like. So if I just do that, then I have something like this. And it might be like too close, so then I'll just like push that back. And if it's like cutting too far, then I'll just reduce the number to be something like that. And it's a little bit in, so I'm just going to move that back out. So you can see that like modeling in Houdini, oops, I lost my selection. It's pretty cool for like concept designing because you can just like try stuff out and like you're not committing to any final design and you don't have to care about like, oh, I have to go and rebuild that. At least with these like basic shapes. So if I keep doing that, I'm just gonna like not have you guys suffer to see me like make more Booleans, unless you want to. No objections? You guys want me to keep like Booleaning? I can just show you like the end result. I think this is gonna be a short presentation, Bill. So if I go to here, where am I? I have some like more shapes over here. if I go down further to my network, I have some more shapes that I want to cut. And then you can like use all the other nodes available to you, like mirror, and just like flip it over to the other side, Boolean those. Here I have a bunch of holes. If I want to make like cuts for screws, then I just like do a whole bunch here, and they all have transform nodes, so I can like reposition them where I want. And then I just merge them all together as like one object kind of thing. And so there, you see them here. And over here, I just go to my Boolean and I say, well, I don't want to make a hole. I just want to make like a little kind of cut thing. And so what this Boolean operation will do is the shatter mode. It's just gonna like find the intersect of your first geometry and then take your second set of geometry, which is all our tubes, and it's gonna give us the intersection curve. And then what I can do is I can save that in this AB seams thing, give it a name that will make sense, because if you keep using that in all the other nodes, it's not going to be a happy story for you. So just like try to name some things. You don't have to name like everything. But then you can take a polybevel and plug that selection of seams into that and end up with these cuts inside. If I zoom in, it's going to look like that. So you get all this kind of detail for free without having to go select the edges, build things around it, and then you can, I don't know, what was that poly extrude that I did there? But if I just move this over to the normal, so I don't see such a crazy jaggedy surface, then I get this like cool looking geometry, this kind of nice detail, which is like going to be helpful if you want to do some hard surface modeling. And so now the PolyDraw is going to come in. It's going to be your friend. There is this mode. So if you click on this little marker thing, and then you make a new visualizer, you select color. There's this color type option, polygon vertex count, which is kind of like a polygon Nazi visualizer. If you want to like identify what are your quads, what are your triangles, what is your n-gons, and it'll color the things respectively like that, and then you'll have like anxiety, like, oh my God, I have so much stuff to clean. But this is helpful, right? Like, you know, you get it right in your face. So there, when you turn on this mode, then you see all this stuff that you have to go through. And so you can just type pdraw and see, it's so fresh, no icon. You can just like start drawing stuff or deleting things. So here I can just, I'm in build mode, so what I actually need is the split mode. So if I just hit Shift 3, then I get my little, I guess like a knife tool, and look, I got a quad, it's blue, happy. And then you just middle mouse to like finish that, and you can just, oh, that didn't work. So what happened there? Then we can just go to build mode and try to delete that, rebuild that mesh. So if I select this edge and I hit the F key, it should fill into a not shape that I want. So there's something like weird that happened with the Boolean. So if we just investigate, I think there is something bad there. Is there? Let me delete this guy. So if I do, oh, we got like something bad here, this point. So if I delete that and try to fill this, F, so it'll do the autofill. And let's try this one. That fills too. And one more. Yes. All right, so what's wrong with this guy? So basically you can use PolyDraw as like your yes, like regular modeling tool. And you can just like la-di-da, do F, and find out where is all your garbage geometry. So this one is bad, this one is bad. I delete, and if I just pop back to my network editor, I just have the one. These don't count because this was from before. But basically, like, all your history is here. And you can just go about working freely. Oops. If that doesn't fill, because like that's not gonna work, you can do this. And let me just fill this guy. That doesn't work either. Let's pull this one out and do that. And hit the F key, and now I can use the straighten mode. So if I just hit Shift S, it straightens it out. And so that is basically PolyDraw for your modeling needs. Yeah, I think that's. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So yeah, that's not like the final version, but just like don't hold us accountable. It's just like a preview. Yeah. If there's any questions, I'm not going to answer them. Don't ask me anything about 17, Houdini 17. This is all I can share. R&D was like, don't spill any beans, Fianna, just this thing. Yes, so we good? Okay, cool, thank you.